AJ Styles is injured after an absolutely brutal encounter with Gunther, and the way WWE has handled this situation has the entire wrestling community outraged. This is serious, this is important, and we need to talk about it right now. Stay with me because what I'm about to share will shock you. Welcome back to Suplex Rumble, where we don't just cover wrestling, we hold the industry accountable. I'm your host, and today we're discussing something that goes beyond wins and losses. Beyond entertainment, we're talking about performer safety and institutional responsibility. If you're new here, subscribe and hit that bell because we bring you honest, thoughtful wrestling coverage that respects the performers who put their bodies on the line for our entertainment. Today we need to have a serious conversation about AJ Styles, Gunther, and a response from WWE that has left many of us disappointed and concerned. Now, before we dive in, let me be clear, we're going to approach this with respect for everyone involved, the performers, the medical staff, and yes, even WWE management. But respect doesn't mean we can't ask tough questions and demand better. Let's get into it. Alright Rumble Nation, let's establish exactly what happened, because context is everything when we're discussing performer safety and injuries. AJ Styles, the phenomenal one, a living legend of professional wrestling, 2 decades of consistently delivering world-class performances, a man who has given his body, his heart, and his soul to this business across multiple continents and companies. At this stage of his career, AJ represents experience, wisdom, and the kind of in-ring storytelling that only comes from years of dedication. And then you have Gunther, the ring general, one of the most dominant, intense, and physically punishing competitors in all of WWE. His matches aren't just contests, they're wars of attrition. The chops that echo through arenas, the stiff strikes that make you wince, the methodical brutality that has defined his championship reign. Gunther doesn't just wrestle, he imposes his will. When these two titans collided, everyone knew we were in for something physical. This wasn't going to be a technical exhibition, this was going to be a battle. And that's exactly what we got. Hard-hitting, brutal, the kind of match that pushes the human body to its absolute limits. And somewhere during this incredibly physical encounter, AJ Styles sustained an injury. Now, the exact nature and severity, that's information that should come from official channels and medical professionals, not speculation. But what we do know is that AJ was hurt during this match, and that's where our story really begins. Let's be honest about something, injuries in professional wrestling are an unfortunate reality. These athletes perform at the highest level, executing complex maneuvers at high speed, often multiple times per week. Even with all the training, all the precautions, all the experience, injuries can and do happen. That's not WWE's fault. That's not Gunther's fault. That's not AJ's fault. It's the inherent risk of this profession. However, and this is a big however, how a company responds to injuries, how they communicate with fans, how they support their performers, and how they handle the aftermath. That's where we can and should evaluate their actions. And that's where this situation gets concerning. Now let's talk about WWE's response to AJ Styles' injury, because this is where many fans, analysts, and industry veterans have expressed serious disappointment and frustration. First and foremost, the communication or lack thereof. In an era where WWE has multiple platforms, social media channels, and direct lines to their audience, the initial silence regarding AJ's condition was deafening. Fans who witnessed the match were worried. People who respect AJ's legendary career wanted to know he was okay. And for far too long, there was nothing. Now, you might think, why does WWE owe us immediate updates? And that's a fair question. But here's the thing, when you build your entire business model around parasocial relationships with fans, when you encourage emotional investment in these performers, when you sell the drama and the reality of what happens in that ring, you create a responsibility to communicate, especially regarding health and safety. The absence of official information created a vacuum that was filled with speculation, rumors, and misinformation. Social media was flooded with unverified reports, exaggerated claims, and genuine concern mixed with sensationalism. WWE could have controlled that narrative with timely, appropriate updates. Instead, they let the situation spiral. And here's what makes this particularly frustrating: WWE has shown they can communicate effectively about injuries when they choose to. We've seen official statements, social media updates, and transparent communication about other performers' conditions. So why the inconsistency? Why does it seem like some injuries get immediate attention while others are left in the dark? But the communication issues? That's just the beginning. Let's talk about the decisions made after the injury became known. And this is where things get really questionable. Reports suggest that despite AJ's injury, there were discussions or even plans to continue storyline elements that would involve him physically before he was medically cleared. Now, if true, that's problematic on multiple levels. You don't rush a veteran performer back into action. You don't prioritize storylines over health. Full stop. And here's something that makes this situation even more concerning: AJ Styles isn't a rookie who might feel pressure to work through injuries to prove himself. He's a legend. He's proven everything. If even someone of AJ's stature might face pressure direct or indirect to return before being fully ready, what does that say about the culture? The medical clearance process should be sacred. It should be independent, thorough, and completely removed from creative or business pressures. Performers should never feel that their spot, their push, or their value is contingent on rushing back from injury. That's not just bad practice, it's dangerous. From a pure PR perspective, WWE's handling of this has been a disaster. Instead of getting ahead of the story with transparency and showing they prioritize performer well-being, they've created a narrative where fans and media are questioning their values and priorities. That's self-inflicted damage that could have been easily avoided. Now, Rumble Nation, I want to take a step back and talk about why this situation matters beyond just AJ Styles, because the implications are significant for the entire industry. Professional wrestling has a complicated history with injury management. For decades, there was a culture of working through injuries, of performers feeling they couldn't show weakness or take time off. People wrestled with broken bones, torn muscles, concussions that should have sidelined them for months. We saw the consequences: shortened careers, long-term health problems, tragic outcomes. In recent years, we've seen progress. More attention to concussion protocols, better medical monitoring, performers feeling more empowered to speak up about injuries. WWE has, at times, been at the forefront of these improvements, which makes situations like this so frustrating. It feels like a step backward when we should be moving forward. There's also the complicated reality of WWE's independent contractor classification for their performers. Without getting too deep into the legal weeds, this classification creates ambiguities about whose responsibility it is to ensure proper injury care, recovery time, and return-to-action protocols. These ambiguities can create situations where performers fall through the cracks. How WWE handles situations like this sends ripples throughout the entire wrestling industry. They're the biggest company, the most visible platform. When they set standards, good or bad, other promotions pay attention. Aspiring wrestlers pay attention. The message being sent right now? That's concerning. Think about this from a performer's perspective. You've dedicated your life to wrestling. You've sacrificed your body. You've given everything to entertain fans. And when you get hurt, it's not if but when how your employer responds tells you everything about how much they value you as a human being versus as a revenue generator. And let's talk about us, the fans. We have a responsibility too. When we demand that performers push through injuries, when we complain about people taking time off, when we prioritize our entertainment over their well-being, we're part of the problem. We need to be better. We need to demand that companies prioritize performer safety, even if it means our favorite storylines get delayed. For someone like AJ Styles, who has already had a Hall of Fame career, the question becomes, what's most important? A few more months of active competition? Or ensuring he can walk his daughter down the aisle, play with future grandchildren, and enjoy a quality of life after wrestling? The answer should be obvious. Long-term health trumps short-term storylines. Always. Okay, we've identified the problems. Now let's talk about solutions, because criticism without constructive alternatives isn't helpful to anyone. First, WWE needs to establish clear, consistent communication protocols for injuries. When a performer is hurt on television or at a major event, there should be an official update within 24 hours, even if that update is simply "we're evaluating the situation and will provide more information when available." That's not complicated. That's basic crisis communication. Second, medical decisions need to be completely independent from creative and business decisions. The doctors clearing performers to compete should have zero pressure from anyone regarding storylines, upcoming events, or ticket sales. Their only consideration should be, is this person medically ready to safely perform? Everything else is irrelevant. Third, WWE should publish clear policies regarding injury management, recovery timelines, and return-to-action protocols. Transparency builds trust. It shows they have systems in place. It demonstrates they're serious about performer safety. And it gives fans confidence that their favorite wrestlers are being properly cared for. Fourth, veteran performers like AJ Styles should have additional protections and considerations. These are athletes whose bodies have absorbed decades of punishment. Their recovery might take longer. Their risk factors might be different. There should be specific protocols for managing injuries in performers over a certain age or with certain tenure. Fifth, there needs to be a cultural shift where taking time to properly heal is seen as strength, not weakness. Where performers are celebrated for prioritizing their health. Where the locker room culture supports people making smart decisions for their long-term well-being. And finally, WWE should educate their fanbase about the realities of injuries, recovery, and the long-term health considerations of professional wrestling. Help fans understand why someone might need months to recover from what seems like a minor injury. Build empathy and understanding. Make the audience partners in caring for performer well-being. There should also be accountability measures, independent oversight, regular audits of injury protocols, perhaps even a performer's advocate who can ensure that medical decisions aren't being influenced by business pressures. These systems exist in other sports, why not in wrestling? Look, Rumble Nation, I know this video has been heavy. I know we've been critical. But I want to be clear about something. This criticism comes from a place of love for professional wrestling and respect for the performers who make it possible. Professional wrestling has evolved so much over the decades. We've seen improvements in training, in ring safety, in medical protocols. The industry is capable of change, is capable of prioritizing performer safety. We've seen it happen. So we know it's possible, we just need to keep pushing for it. As for AJ Styles specifically, my hope, and I think the hope of every wrestling fan, is that he gets whatever time he needs to properly recover. Whether that's weeks or months, whether it means missing major events or altering storylines, none of that matters as much as his health. The phenomenal one has earned the right to recover properly and return when he's truly ready. And here's something important for fans to remember: we have power in this equation. When we voice our concerns about performer safety, when we support wrestlers taking time off to heal, when we hold companies accountable for how they treat their talent, that matters. WWE pays attention to fan sentiment. Our voices can influence positive change. So I encourage everyone watching, support performers who prioritize their health. Celebrate companies and promotions that have strong safety protocols. Call out problematic practices when you see them. Buy merchandise from wrestlers you want to support. Attend shows. But also, be vocal about expecting proper treatment of performers. That's how we create change. I genuinely believe WWE can do better. They have done better in the past. This situation with AJ Styles, hopefully it becomes a learning moment. Hopefully it sparks internal conversations about how to improve. Hopefully it leads to changes that benefit not just AJ, but every performer on that roster. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing: to see the wrestlers we love perform at their best for as long as possible, and then retire on their own terms with their health intact. That should be the goal for every wrestling company, every promotion, every event. Anything less is unacceptable. The situation with AJ Styles' injury and WWE's response is disappointing, it's concerning, and it's something we needed to address honestly and thoroughly. These conversations aren't always comfortable, but they're necessary if we want professional wrestling to continue evolving in the right direction. AJ Styles deserves better. Every WWE performer deserves better. And as fans, we should demand better. Not with toxicity, not with harassment, but with thoughtful criticism, with supporting the right behaviors, and with holding companies accountable to the standards they themselves claim to uphold. I hope AJ makes a full recovery and comes back when he's truly ready, not a moment sooner. I hope WWE takes this situation seriously and implements real changes to their injury communication and management protocols. And I hope we, as a wrestling community, continue having these important conversations about performer safety and well-being. If this video resonated with you, if you believe performer safety should be the top priority, show your support by hitting that like button. Subscribe to Suplex Rumble for more honest, thoughtful wrestling coverage that respects the performers. And please, share your thoughts in the comments respectfully, constructively, but honestly. Have you noticed other instances where WWE's injury management could improve? Do you have ideas for better protocols? Let's have that conversation in the comments. Together, we can advocate for the changes that will protect the wrestlers we love. I'm your host, and this has been Suplex Rumble. Until next time, let's keep celebrating professional wrestling while also demanding that it treats its performers with the respect, care, and dignity they deserve. Take care, and get well soon, AJ. See you in the next one.